So, on behalf of Small Wonders, first of all, I would like to say thank you for having us here today.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you so much. We always love coming here. So, just speaking of inclusive education at Small Wonders, we've been carrying out this venture, so to say, we've had this endeavor for the longest time, if we remember, to include everyone, to have inclusive education, right? The only challenge we face at an early age is for the acceptance of the parents.
Yeah.
That is the first stage where we kind of come in because we've dealt with students and we know at a particular age what the milestone should be. But there is usually a gap. And when we're able to identify that, that's where the journey begins, right? So I think what we are dealing with here, we've been able to identify certain special CWSN categories, we've been able to identify that. We've started our work, but we want to formalize it even further, right? So yes, we've been working on certain plans and everything, but since this came up, this opportunity of having a workshop or training here as to how we can formalize it even further, right? And that transition from small to smart can be even more smooth. So I think in the past years, what we've done is we've shared our, what do you call those? PCRs, in where we do mention what the challenges were, what the child was suffering with, and what we've been able to do alongside for the child. But like now we're talking about, we do understand that some children do show a lot of improvement, but some do not, right? But to ensure that there is improvement, what can we do about it? So that's what we are here for, basically.
So, thank you. Thank you for the question. So, there are no quick fixes, I would say, that the things would change overnight. And what works well with one learner might not work with the other one. So, what we have to do is keep trying, try, adjust, fail, try again. And we can, sometimes I certainly don't believe in fixed interventions or strategies. Sometimes things work wonderfully with some children and sometimes they don't. So you have to keep trying, you have to keep exploring, keep your classrooms, the classroom environment should be very conducive. It's better that we don't segregate children, we include them in an inclusive setup only, and the curriculum can be modified. There could be changes in the curriculum as per the learning level of the child, and the certain modifications can be made. The access arrangements can be made, and most importantly, resource room is very important. Sometimes it's very important when we need to have one-to-one individual session. For some children, push-in services, they do work, but for some children, you need to take them out. That push-out services are also required because there are distractions all around. There are distractions in the class, and a child might require individual attention. So you have to keeping all these things in mind, plan the strategies, and it's very important to move in small chunks, and move in small steps. There should be no hurry, there should be no rush. That okay, sometimes when the parents are very keen that okay, my child, मेरा बच्चा तो KG क्लास में है, तो इसको KG का पूरा करिकुलम आ जाना चाहिए. Whatever the child should be at par with other kids, which is actually not possible. Sometimes the parent is receptive and sometimes the parents are not at all. But yes, the interventions for reading, writing and maths, they work wonderfully if it is taken care that what is the learning level of the child, whether the child has gone in for a formal assessment or not. Formal assessment is really very, very important. It's not like we can start begin to work with the child the way we want to. It's not like that. So for that, a formal assessment diagnosis is very important. And once it is done, you have a clear picture that okay, this is the learning level of the child, and this is how we are going to proceed forward. And I think if we have the plan we have a proper plan in hand, and then I think, and we work in coordination, like we have shadow teachers in the classroom, we have special educators, we have the class facilitator, and all of them, if they work in coordination, in collaboration with each other, I think nothing else needs to be done or emphasized on. Anything else? Anybody? Any questions?
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm sorry to disturb you. I think you were about to start. Just a quick question. I have a child in my class and she's very smart academically, but often I feel that her attention span is, bare minimum. Like in 2 minutes she finishes off her thing and she wants to move on to the next. So I'm looking forward if you can just suggest us that how can we be ready as an educator.
We'll be taking up later on once we are done with the presentation.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you.
Alright, so before we begin with the identification process, let us understand about the learning process. Learning is acquisition of experiences, knowledge, right? And whatever there are various stimuli that are present in the environment, right? So how do we learn? We learn through our senses. So whatever the information our senses gather, then those change into neurosignals, and this is how the learning process begins. The first is the stimuli that is present in the environment. Through our senses we learn. Sensation, our sensory organs, they detect these stimuli and convert them into neurosignals. Attention acts as a filter. So now the attention plays a major role. We cannot, gather all the information and keep it in our mind for a long time. So attention acts as a filter. Selecting which sensory information proceeds further in the learning process. Then comes the working memory. So working memory is just like a sticky note in your brain, right? So whatever we are learning, it's the working memory. So working memory can also be divided into two parts: long-term memory and the short-term memory. Now the short-term memory, short-term memory holds the information for a very shorter period of time, say for a few seconds or a few minutes. Like if I say somebody is telling me a phone number and I have to write it down, so I'll keep it in my mind for a few seconds, for a minute maybe, and then it won't last for more than a minute or 2 minutes. So the short-term memory holds information for a very short period of time. Then comes the long-term memory. Long-term memory holds all the information, experiences for a very long period of time. The skills that we learn, right? The experiences that we have in life. So those information, those experiences, those skills are there in the long-term memory. For example, if I learned swimming when I was young, but I still remember how to swim. So that's a long-term memory. So my brain can hold information for a long period of time. So this is the learning process, and then comes the perception. When you hold the information, when you look at the information as a whole, right? I know the parts of a flower, but once I know these are the parts, and together this picture is a flower. So I know, I can perceive it as a whole. So that's perception. Next slide, please. Types of learning disabilities. So we'll be focusing on these types of learning disabilities: dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, ADHD, and autism. Next slide, please. Different elements of LD. So it's a heterogeneous disorder, dissimilar condition, manifested in different ways. For example, if a child has a difficulty in reading, the child may not be able to identify letters. The other might not be able to comprehend what is written. One might not be able to identify the letters, other might not be able to comprehend what is the meaning of the sentence. So it's a heterogeneous disorder. Academic underachievement. When we talk about academic underachievement, This means that there is a discrepancy. Generally, it is 2 grades below. The child will be performing 2 grades below. अगर मैं बोल रही हूँ कि बच्चा grade 4 में है, and if there is a learning challenge, there is a discrepancy, then the level of the child would be of grade 2. Then central nervous dysfunction. It is not a disease; it's a neurological disorder. There is a central nervous dysfunction. Psychological processing disorder. Yes, the information is processed differently in a different manner. Lifespan. Yes, it will continue throughout the life. It cannot be. It's not a disease, like I said earlier. Also, it's not a disease. So it will be there throughout the life. Not the result of other condition. If a child has a hearing impairment or a child has a visual impairment, it is not the result of that impairment. That's a secondary thing. So that condition will be there. It's not the result of some other condition. The next slide, please. Okay. So now let's discuss the various ranges of the IQ. 130 and above, very superior. 120 and 129, superior. 110 and 119, high average. 90 to 109, average. 80 to 89, low average. 70, 79, borderline. And 69 and below, intellectual disability, you can say. Alright. So generally a child having a learning disability, having a learning challenge, might have an average IQ or above average IQ. IQ has, yes, IQ, though IQ plays a very vital role, but it has nothing to do कि हाँ जी IQ बहुत ज़्यादा है बच्चे का फिर क्यों इसको problem है. It can be there even if the child has an average IQ or above average IQ. Learning disabilities, the term was first coined by American psychologist and educator Samuel Kirk in the year 1963. So it is a heterogeneous group of disorders which is generally seen in the area of reading, writing, maths, mathematical calculations. So basically the literacy and the numeracy skills, they get affected. Learning difficulties versus learning disabilities. So often we get confused between the two. They are entirely different. The child might have a learning difficulty which is totally different from a learning disability. The reasons for learning difficulty are different. There could be a language barrier. Okay, the child might not have a good exposure of the teaching learning process. There must be some kind of emotional disturbance, which is a big hurdle in the learning process. So learning difficulty is entirely different from the learning disabilities. So don't get confused between the two of them. Demystifying dyslexia. It is a learning difference that makes it harder for children and adults to read, write and spell. Very, very common. So it's basically a reading difficulty. So let us first focus on the structure of the brain. We all know that our brain is divided into two parts, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. The left hemisphere controls the right portion of our body and the right hemisphere, it controls the left portion of our body. So these are the very important parts of the brain. The frontal lobe, right here, your forehead. This area, very, very important for planning, for organization. Then comes the parietal lobe, which is the middle part of your brain, which is it plays a very vital role in understanding mathematical concepts, spatial learning. Then the occipital lobe, which is behind your brain, behind your head, back of your head. So it's important for visual processing. Whatever the information we are gathering visually, so it holds that information. And if there is any kind of challenge in this area, then it might affect the understanding through visuals. Through the child might not understand visually. Then comes the temporal lobes, which is right here, near the ears. So this plays an important role in understanding language. It affects the speech. If there is this area gets affected, it is a big problem in understanding language. There is a speech delay also. And then is the cerebrum. Cerebrum plays a vital role in balancing, coordination, motor coordination. So these are the various parts in the brain which have their own unique role, and if there is any kind of if any of these areas get affected, there will definitely be a learning challenge. Now, facts about reading challenges. Invisible disability, like there are numerous disabilities which are invisible, and this is one of them. Dyslexia is one of them. Neurological disorder, like I just said, it's not a disease that can be cured. Yes, it can be managed, but it cannot be cured. Problem in processing information. The general term for reading disability, which involves difficulty in phonetic mapping, where sufferers have difficulty with matching various orthographic representations of specific sounds. So that the child might not be able to understand the letters, the alphabets, the numbers. A person can see a combination of letters but not perceive them in the correct order. Attention deficit, yes, these children, they do get distracted very easily. Affect the memory processing areas. They cannot hold the information for a very long time. So you have to keep the remedial work going on at short intervals. It is very, very important. Difficulty in reading, which affects the written expression. If a child has a difficulty in reading, the child might have a problem in writing as well. Reading is input, writing is the output. Dyslexia identification checklist. Difficulty with learning the sounds that corresponds to letters and letter combinations. Difficulty with sounding out, that is decoding words, understanding the meaning of the word. Difficulty with differentiating between letters or words that look similar. They often get confused with the letters which look similar, even the numbers also. Difficulty with recognizing and remembering high frequency or sight words such as said, they, so they might have a challenge reading these words. Difficulty with accuracy, that is the SODA errors, we'll be discussing it in the next slide. Difficulty with SODA errors, basically these are the spelling errors. Difficulty with fluency, reading with ease, speed and expression. They might keep on reading at the same pitch, the tone, you will find no difference in the tone, it will be the same. Difficulty with comprehension of text and difficulty in maintaining place while reading. So you have to keep reminding them, put your pencil here, put your finger here. So you have to keep reminding them while reading. So different types of articulation errors, these are the errors that we generally see when the children, they spell some new words. Speech sound production is a process of complexity which involves precise planning, movement and coordination. So it's not easy. So it's a coordination of your tongue, your jaw, right, your palate. So it's not an easy process. So every child takes its own time to develop these skills. So first is this substitution, the error of substitution. Replacing one sound with another, like wed for red or tho for soap. So it's substituting some other letter. Omission, leaving out a sound in a word. Play the piano. So the child has omitted the letter L here. Distortion, pronouncing sound in an unfamiliar way. Ellipse, where a S sound should be sh, replacing it with a so or a show some. Then addition, black horse. The child wanted to write black horse, but there is an addition because the child is writing the word as per the sound, the sound of the word. So this is the error of addition. So these are four main errors: substitution, omission, distortion, and addition. We call them as SORA errors. This is an example of child having